consent of my friend here, Lori, allow me to introduce my friend
No,
Lori.
I don't care.
Yeah, well, we were friends
Your friend who?
we were friends at work and outside of work as well. And she's the reason why I climbed up to a management position at my previous job. And since we both work from home, well, actually, she can talk about whatever topic she wants, and I'll just go along with it. You pretty much lead everything anyway, right, Lori?
I can't help it. Well, okay. I should announce to the world your personality traits. I have to let them guess.
Oh, well, but moving right along. Yeah, some things you can just, some things you can just.
What was this about a guy earlier?
Yeah, so just going into that briefly, my latest status update involved, and after I quit my job recently, several of my coworkers were posting on my Facebook wall, and they were like, dude, are you drunk? You need to lay off the bottle, blah, blah, blah. So I'm pretty sure my opening probably doesn't help their perception of that. But
you could have told them that you've been wearing the diaper too long. It would have really then meant a different kind of bottle.
Oh dear, you just had to go there, didn't you?
Of course.
Of course, why can't you rely on you? No, it was just somebody else I was harassing while I was talking on the phone with you, since I just literally stepped out of the shower. I posted a message on a piece of paper on his Facebook wall, and I used my cam to take the picture. It wasn't anything inappropriate, but it was while I was talking to you, and he's like, are you on the phone? I'm like, yes, I'm having a conversation. But I done ticked him off, so it's just you and me now.
See, you've got to be, okay. Being at home has not helped your social skills.
Excuse me? I don't think my social skills were probably all that.
Excuse me?
Well, okay. That's probably going to get used against me. But, my social skills probably did not.
Everything can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion, so you better be careful.
My social skills were in question far before I ever signed up for a work-at-home job. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but let's face it, work at home. I told my doctor's office the other day, I said, you don't understand. I live in a dungeon. I said, so they let me out for like a reprieve, and I'm seeing like walking, breathing people, and I just have to stop and talk to them.
Yeah, that's something else that I'm thinking about as well. You've been in this type of business longer than I have, and actually, before, and if we say the company's name by accident, I'll just bleep it out. But before the company that we both mutually worked for, you actually worked for other work-at-home companies. And, everyone that I talk to, when I tell them about the fact that I worked from home and that, I work for this client or this company taking customer calls, they always tell me, well, you have the best job in the world. I would always want to do what you do. And after doing it for 2.5 years, it just makes you kind of wanting of a social environment, like you implied earlier. You begin to feel isolated and alone. Has that kind of well, you live with other people in your household, right?
Well, okay. When I started, you got to understand, I've been doing customer service, because that's what it basically is. I've been doing customer service for, 2006, so close to 8 years. Mm-hmm. So, oh my God, I didn't realize that. That's making me sound old. Anyway,
don't worry, I can edit anything that makes you sound excessively old. Just kidding.
Oh, well, come on, son, you need to stop. Now,
okay, Mom. No, my mom will probably be listening to this, and she will hear me say that. No, but you have a lot of experience.
You know what? If you explain to her, she'd understand. But anyway, the thing of it is that one of the things, like you said, the social depravity is one. I've noticed that at least, and I did this too on my previous job, that where you connect, it isn't like you have the water cooler per se, where you can meet your coworkers. Because it isn't like they're going to walk up to you and like start talking to you at work or things like that, or that you can have that conversation over lunch or whatever. My previous job, we actually all started with one of the clients, I'll say it that way, that it was on. We actually all started in Yahoo, like Yahoo Messenger. And then we moved over to Skype. So yes, I do have a Skype account, you just don't have it.
Mhm.
I hardly ever log into it. That's why. But it was actually that networking that actually allowed me to find my current employer, and which is really good. You know, you always have to, you know, stay in contact with people. But what I have found is that now, and I don't know if you've noticed this, what I would almost consider the water cooler per se is Facebook. It's really funny to watch because, you know, you and I both have a lot of coworkers on our walls, and it's really funny that it's almost like that's the water cooler.
Right.
You know, where we can interact, we can joke. And I mean, we're joking and we're talking to people who really are our boss in some respect. You know, they're leaders and managers and things like that.
They're
it's
what?
For me nice. They're leaders and managers. I mean, I've actually got, I have a couple of, you know, managers on my walls, you know, my friends list, but nobody knows who they are because they can't see my friends list.
Right.
Because I have my friends list completely private for
I
a
noticed
reason.
that.
Oh, poor baby, you can't steal them.
Well, when I first started talking to you, I will admit, you know, like, as is pretty much standard practice for just about anybody, I took a look
You look on their friends list.
Well,
your friends list.
I don't know if there's
crap about me, huh?
Not to veer too much on a tangent from what you were trying to say, but I have noticed that, you know, looking at other people's profiles, if you happen to be a mutual friend with them, I can see that you're a mutual friend.
Yeah.
So if I look up a team leader's profile or a coworker's profile, even if they're not my friend, I can see that you're their friend, and I wonder if that's something you control with a privacy setting too.
It is.
No.
You know, you can control. See, you can't see my friends list, and I do that intentionally because to me that's my business. What I do, you know, for me is I find that, for me, I can see these people that under normal circumstances you really don't get to talk to because at work they're so busy. And you can't really hold personal conversations because everything has to be HR appropriate. And so you can't like ask, hey, how are you doing today? We don't get an opportunity to have, you know, between manager to, you know, to agent or whatever. You don't get to have a personal, what I would call more of a friendly acquaintance relationship. Not necessarily personal. I mean, you and I are personal.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Only with you have
we went beyond. Yeah, I know, exactly.
Only with you as a coworker have I had my phone on speaker next to my shower at 11 p.m. or midnight talking to you about work while taking a shower.
Heck, I've gone to the bathroom with you. Come on, hello.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I wasn't aware of those instances.
I'm good. Now, you know, that's what you get when you're with the best.
Hey, I learned from the best people. She's the one who originally helped build my skill. When obviously I was a team leader or in a management position before I left, but at some point our roles were reversed in the very beginning. And just to give our listeners a little bit of background.
Yeah, the very beginning.
Well, you know, Lori was in what's called a call escalation queue. You know, I won't use
they
the proper
did like
name,
a supervisor.
Yeah,
I think of it like a supervisor.
And, you know, every time I would call in for help, you know, I'd get whoever was available, but Lori was one of the, I don't know, Lori, were you one of the senior, like you would say one of the senior escalation queue? No? Well, I mean, she was
we were all at the same level, but the thing is that I don't know why. I mean, to me, you impressed me from the minute the very first call. And I never forgot you. And I remember talking to one of our other, I'm not going to mention names, but one of our fellow coworkers, and we would talk about you, and it's like, you know, he's going somewhere. We said it. We called it within, I think 2 or 3 weeks of talking to you.
Aww.
And
You're so
called
nice to me.
I mean, I do.
She's always so nice to me.
It's hard to explain it, okay? But you had something that, that it's hard to explain. But the other thing too is that I remember after you'd been there for about 6 months.
Mm.
And you're going to probably remember this day too. And at that point now, the bloom is off the rose, as we like to say in the industry. Meaning you've worked the biz for a while and, you know, Because when you first start out, if you've never done it before, you kind of have a little bit of rose-colored glasses on. And you think it's all going to be a certain way.
Basically new hire enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's not just new hire enthusiasm. It's you realize that all the stuff and that you've ever dished out, you're going to get back in spades. Okay? So that's the way I look at it. You know, I always am nice to customer service representatives because I know for a fact karma can get me in the rear end. Because I'm a customer service and I will get it back, you know? And, you know, I could tell. And there was a day you called in and, you know, and I realized we only had moments. That what people don't realize is that the communication that we would have would just be, you know, what, minute, 2 minutes. I mean, it was short. It couldn't be very long. And you called in one day and it was something in your voice. And I'm like, you know, now Shane, it's okay. And I made you laugh. It's something I made you laugh. I did that with all of the agents I talked to. Because for me, the experience that they would have with me needed to be, you know, how did I know what was going on with the customer?
Uh-huh.
Something was stressing you out, whatever it be, but you can't let that go to the customer. And maybe if I make you laugh, you'll take that laugh into the contact with the customer.
Well,
you know?
and you know, you're demonstrating a quality, just circling it back around to the social aspect of the environment. You're demonstrating just through your words now a quality that I mentioned while resigning from the company that we both used to work for mutually, a concept called emotional intelligence. And it's where you understand cause and effect when it comes to other people's feelings. And you understood that I was a new person, I was inexperienced, I was making an effort to do the job with which I was tasked, and you did the best that you could to help me feel like I could build.
Well, I encourage you and
exactly.
I remember a couple times you wanted to quit.
And you know, there really were instances and I'm pretty sure I wasn't alone on this. And if
you weren't.
And I'm speaking to the audience, if any of you have looked at my Facebook wall recently, you may have noticed that I posted an image of the company involved. Well, maybe I'll make that private now, but there was more.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything like that because after all, remember the rules.
Well, this is stuff that other people posted, like, you know, the website Glassdoor.com where you can write reviews about companies and what kind of salaries they give, and well, there have been a lot of negative reviews recently, and you know, just to dip back into the emotional and social aspect of it, a lot of in that type of environment where you work from home, you're not able to convey emotions, body language. You have voice tone, but you don't have any of the other.
Well, it isn't just that. It isn't just that. To a company, if you look at to a company, okay, to go just on wages to a company, outside of what you can do with a customer. But to a company, when you work at home, the risk that you take with this, and I know this because I have a friend who works from home, in reference to, you know, another company, I'm not going to mention names, but it's not in customer service like what we were. It's something totally different. It's in a totally unrelated field. They had to earn the right to work from home. And what happens is your boss isn't like you're in a call center or somewhere where something happens. They can physically see you. So if you're in there puking up your guts and, you know, if you're sicker than a dog, they can see that. You know, hey, go home. When you're at home, they can't see that. So you don't get that luxury. You get these certain days, and that's very arbitrary of, you know, you have this time that you can actually do, you have points, blah, blah, blah. But after that, you know, we're done. Or the main thing is that you always have to worry about the out of sight, out of mind. You know, losing value. Because to a company, the value that you are is obviously your production. To any company, because a company is about money. They want a profit. So that doesn't matter whether it be the company we work for or whether it be, you know, ABC company down the road.
Well, you know, some would argue.
They're after profit.
Some would argue that the independence aspect of working from home is attractive. And while it is true that you're out of sight and out of mind, it ties in with the fact that you're given a large amount of you don't really have a lot of direct management oversight. You pretty much, well, I guess it depends on the company you work for, but and the one that
depends on the company you work for, because the one we work for does have a lot of management oversight. And I've done both ways, because the previous company that I worked for truthfully did not have much management oversight. It literally was a free-for-all when the schedule would come out. You know, we didn't have a set schedule. We literally would pounce on it the second it hit for the, you know, all of the hours would hit to try to grab our schedule for that next week and stuff like that. I mean, it was a dog-eat-dog thing.
Oh, you're talking about the company that was primarily part-time, right? The one that you mentioned.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't supposed to be part-time. I needed it to be full-time. But it ended up being part-time because of the fact I couldn't get hours. They would come out like one time a week, the main hours, okay? And as soon as they were out, within probably 5 to 10 minutes max, they were gone.
If we're thinking of the same company, do they even really do full-time? From what I've read, that particular company
No, it's all
does
about,
part-time.
it's not full-time like what you're thinking what we have now. Oh, it can be full-time. I've done it. But it's not a set schedule. You have to go in and grab your schedule. So you go in, and the day that, you know, you learn when you start a new skill line, whatever, you learn when that schedule comes out. And I would sit in my browser every day when that was time, and I would be hitting refresh over and over and over and over again for, you know, start, because it could go. They didn't have a set time, but they'd have a time range. So I'd start within that range, and it could, you know, and I would sit there waiting for the schedule to hit, and you'd know because it would all turn green. And then the minute it does, you're grabbing. And you got to grab and save. And it was a free-for-all. And you worked what you got. Now, there was advantages to that. You know, you had a little more flexibility with your schedule. We could actually trade better. We could actually trade up 24 hours before, and sometimes even day of. I had to do that in an emergency one time.
Yeah, that little experiment with our company wasn't the latest company.
But this wasn't the same way. This wasn't like a TO putting it up. You just put it up on the trade board, and if somebody took it, you didn't work it, which was nice, you know. And there's a work-at-home site. It's a support group, and we would put it in there. Hey, I have hours up on trades. I have this emergency. Please, people, take them. You know, I had to do that one time. My partner was having a heart attack in my ear, and it was during a call. He was in my other ear. Nobody knew, of course, during my call. I mean, I'm that good. He doesn't test me anymore on my professionalism, but because of that call, he was in my ear having a heart, you know, going into cardiac arrest. And I did not with the customer. The customer had no idea. It ended up being I had to get a supervisor for something. I don't remember what. It was a little while ago. They had no idea that I was in that position. Okay.
Wow.
Where I've got an emergency happening that essentially is at home, right? And nobody knew. But the minute that call ended, okay, I logged out of my system. I put into the chat. I said, I'm dumping my work. Everybody please take. My partner is having a heart attack. I've got to go.
Were you able to transfer to a different department? Sometimes you can usually make up a reason and just send people off.
No, I put it up on trades. I put all the work up on trades, okay, for that day, everything I had that day, so I could get out. And I put it up on the website. I put it in the chat. I said, I have this is what's going on, and I put it on the support group.
But you were active on the call, right?
All of my work was gone. So this was actually, well, it was why I was actually waiting on the supervisor. I did it because, you know.
If that was me, I would just be like,
let
me connect you to a specialist who can further assist you with that.
No, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do that.
Even if somebody was dying.
It was a question. It wasn't like I said, no one knew this was happening in my ear. But as soon as, I put all the work up on trades, I put it in the chat. I said, this is what's happening. I said, I have an emergency. This is what's going on. I cannot work. Because at this point now I'm shaking. Because realize I'm off the phone with the customer. So now the emotion of the situation is hitting. And I said, I can't work anymore. All my hours are some from here to here. Please, people, take them. And I left. I said, I didn't care. You know what I mean? I couldn't do anything. I just left. Within 10 minutes, all of my hours for that day were gone. So everybody took them.
Given the fact that you were trying to compete with other workers for hours all the time anyway, it would seem no surprise to me that other workers were trying to get hours of their own. So that kind of works out, right?
But not necessarily, because if the reason that they did was because I had an emergency, okay? Most people by the day of a shift, they already know their schedule and they really don't have time. But if someone would put out, hey, I have an emergency, people would go above and beyond. If you could get it through to the people who knew you and that kind of stuff and, whatever, then they would actually go through and seek them. Because there always were, like you said, people who were seeking more hours. But let's say they didn't work for their schedule. But if they knew it was an emergency, because I would do the same. If I would see on a trade that someone had a medical emergency, I would take that trade before I would take a regular one. Does that make sense?
So
because
when you actually,
I knew that person needed that hour gone.
So does that mean that when you post the trades, you have like the ability to add a note or explain the circumstances?
Yeah, it was really cool. We had an ability to add a note. It was a short note.
I'm guessing you didn't use the same software that we used for scheduling at our company.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
We didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I do miss about our current place of employment is that now it's 48 hours. And that's hard because sometimes things happen and we're screwed. But that's why I keep my attendance points down. I mean, I sit very, very, I actually have a 0 right now.
Very good. You earned everything back.
Yeah, well, the lowest, the highest I ever got was 9 3/4, I think, and that was 3 years ago. But I don't want them because if I ever had something happen, I want that flexibility. I want the ability that I'm not going to get fired right away. I have wiggle room if I need it. But for me, it's so hard because we don't have that flexibility to thump everything like I did before. But the trade-off though is that we have a set schedule. I love the set schedule. Now, I wish it was truly set and we didn't have it change, all the time on our
flex schedules. Well, we have flex schedules with varying. They do give the ability to get a core or a semi-fixed schedule based off of your performance.
Based off your performance. But see, the thing is that I liked that. I liked that assurance to know that I, number one, have those hours, and number two, that, these are the hours I work. But coming in, being able to work, one thing I found is it's not for everybody. It's, some people, my partner being one of them, cannot be somebody who has the bed in the same room.
I was kind of that kind of person during training. Yeah, I actually, for my first 2 weeks of training, and David, if you're listening to this, I actually worked in my bedroom, of course, too. And when I first started working for the company, I lived with my grandparents. So, I had my own bedroom and I worked out of it. Well, training was, as one of the other trainers called it, hurry up and wait. So you would just basically listen to people work out system issues.
You missed it. So you started training after they switched the system. When I did training, that was back when we had a different system and we could actually play on our own desktop. So a lot of people, when I would do training, were playing Farmville.
Well, I mean, I started out very abiding by the rules and very attentive, but training captivates you only so far.
Training, though, can only give you so much. Because the thing that I find about training a lot of times is that it really has yes, there's a little bit of purpose, but as far as getting you ready to take those calls, it's really, it's minimal. Because you just have to take the calls. You're not going to learn it until you actually start having a practical use for it. And if you're just listening to somebody teaching it to you, it doesn't have a practical purpose yet. And, now if we go into training or something, it's different because we have call experience. But before you have call experience ever doing it, it has no practical, there's nothing to relate it to.
Well, that's something, that does make perfect sense. And if you read that document that I presented to our company before I left, that was one of the points upon which I touched I did spend a moderate amount of time writing.
Probably about how many pages did you spend on that one?
It was a 17-page document. You had a chance to touch on some of the benefits of working from home, mainly scheduling flexibility, as you described, but we're starting to enter into some of the disadvantages. Before we continue talking about the social and emotional aspect, you touched on the training part, but that just seems to be a part of, that seems to be an affliction of the service industry in general, right? Because multiple companies have employees that
not necessarily.
If you go on Glassdoor, if you go on other websites where people talk about different work-at-home companies or even different call center companies, contact centers as they're called, to work for, one of the major complaints is that the training's not adequate. They focus too much on concepts and don't reinforce them through practical situations, role play, simulations, which is what you were alluding to earlier. So what kind of insight can you offer on that?
But see, the problem is that when you're in training initially, okay, when you just start training, the problem with that is that even if you have role plays and things like that, because I mean, we had a few role plays when I did stuff, but even if you do it, it really still has no practical thing, okay? You don't understand until you actually start taking calls. So I think where the training needs to be is more follow-up once you've been on the phone for a little while. So, but I do like, honestly, one of my favorite things is the way that our, you know, as you know, this company, that they handle the period between your training before you actually are just on the phone by yourself. And it's called transition. And I really, truthfully, I think that is one of the best things that has ever been invented. Because when I worked in my previous company, no, you went through your train and it was all by yourself. Okay? And then, boom, you were on the phone. There was no warning, no nothing. No, you know, you were just, here you go, and you're expected to just do the calls. There was no other training, no nothing. The way that they did transition, you know, that they do the transition period, for me, that is like, it blew me away. Because realize I came from polar opposites. And to have that environment where you have the support as a newer agent was really helpful and also encouraging. So if anything, I mean, anybody out there that we know, because we know that there's possible coworkers who might hear this and stuff, that to me was really invaluable, and I thought that was one of the best things they ever did. I love the fact that they have extended it, because when I first did it, it was only 2 weeks. I think they've extended it to 3. The other thing is that once you then go out, then you have a little more, before you're just on your own, per se, you know, what you call on your own, you've got more now practical knowledge and use going into it. I do wish sometimes, like some of the other training that they do with other things, I wish it was longer in the sense that I wish they'd give more time for the interaction, because now you've got practical knowledge to it.
Well, let me stop you right there, actually, and offer comment on the matter of training. You are right when it comes to practical.
I already know you don't like the training. You
well,
think
I think that, and you know, I had a discussion back when I was a team leader with one of the operations managers about that as well, because that was one of the first things that I expressed after I became a team leader. I will quote verbatim from what I had said. I think that I'm basically being asked to perform brain surgery using a first aid kit. When I have agents under me who don't know how to use the time clock system, they don't understand key metrics related to.
I agree.
Well, when they don't understand key metrics,
when
they don't understand key metrics related to their calls and non-call related metrics, such as internal metrics, things like schedule adherence or phone time variance, these are all concepts that are general to any call center environment, of course. These are not things that I, as a team leader, should have to spend 30 minutes of coaching time and 30 minutes of pre-shift time.
Unfortunately, that's when they're depending on they're saying that it's the team leader's job to say that. But, I mean, one of the things, I will say this, okay? I kept asking, and I'm going to use a metric, because as you know, you and I have been friends for a while, and even after you became a team leader, I talked to you, and things like that. Well, you are the one who actually finally got me to understand phone time variance. Let's just use phone time variance, for instance. And I didn't understand exactly how that was gotten. Now, I asked about it, and people were like, oh, you need to lower your phone time variance, or you need, and I'm like, well, I'd ask, well, what is this? And nobody ever answered it. until one day was right after you became a TL. And I asked you remember that day, and you told me exactly what it was and what it was consisted of and how it was gotten together. And all of a sudden I had a light bulb moment. And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. And it made sense. And my time variance dropped over a whole point. So that tells me.
I appreciate being given credit.
Yeah, you saw it. Yeah, well, you saw it drop.
Since I took the time to look at other people's scorecards, which was one of the that's an entirely different topic. But
what are we gonna do now? Fire you?
Well, excluding serious breaches of company and client information, I can basically say whatever I want.
But we're not divulging anything about anybody other than you and I talking about mine.
Exactly. And just so you know, I've got about 29 minutes left on the Skype line, just so you know. But that's what I'm
saying. You never, to just put it blank, I know you probably looked at others. Come on, what TL doesn't?
Well,
but the thing is that when it came to mine, because we can stick just specific to mine, because that way, I didn't care. And there was a lot of times you'd say something to me. Now, Lori, you're probably going to get a coaching from your TL this week about average handle time. And I'm like, I know. And the thing is that for me, I didn't care if you looked at them. And I didn't care if you said anything. But I just think it was sad that I've been with the company as long as I have. I'm not going to mention time frame. But I've been with them for a long time. And it took that long for me to understand phone time variance. It isn't like it was ever described anywhere. Why? Why isn't it ever written anywhere? This is what this number is made up of.
I'm going
to... even if they put it out there, at least then they put it on the agent to learn it.
Let me go ahead and summarize my position on training. And I'm going to tell you, Lori, what I told 2 operations managers who did a first interview and 2 senior operations managers and a site leader when a second interview was done for the team leader position. I said that I felt training is everything. Now, hear me out on this one. Hear me out on this one. That training is everything. If you have employees working for you who don't know how to do their job, you have higher instances of integrity issues, you have poor attendance, you have more customer complaints, lower productivity, and the employee morale will drop overall because disgruntled employees who feel trapped in a cycle of despair beyond their control will spread that negative feeling to others. As you know, our company's response to that, or at least the response of many of the team leaders, was simply to say, stop being so negative, or, have a positive attitude. Let's keep negative comments out of the chat. Let's try to be positive without directly addressing the agent's concerns. So this shows how two dual issues, poor training, 2 weeks of training, honestly, I don't think there's any excuse for an agent not to know what phone time variance is. I'm sorry. But moving on, there's the dual issue of training and there's the dual issue of not understanding cause and effect with agents' emotions. And thus you have a cycle of attrition because agents are constantly quitting. The transition period that you remarked earlier about, it is a good system because it gives agents hands-on practice, but many agents at this point would become so frustrated because they don't know how to do their jobs, and coaches and trainers who are already burdened with 50 to 60 hours or more per week of trying to manage technicalities and procedural paperwork don't have the time to teach practical applications of concepts. Instead, they just stay at rhetoric. Let me just read you something really quick, Lori, from Glassdoor.com about this company. And this was something that I just pulled up. And are you in front of your computer right now?
Yeah, I am, but I didn't have that pulled up. I didn't realize. I didn't want to.
That's okay. No.
Well,
I'm in front of it too. My attention's with you since we're having this discussion, and our audience, of course. And if you've listened 35 minutes into this conversation, I want to say thank you very much. I only have as much Skype time allocated for 60 minutes, and I promise I won't take up the next 25, Lori. But just 2 more minutes. But I just posted a link, and I'm not going to say the company's name. And I have Facebook open too. But I have this review in front of me. I just gave it to you in IM. Very poor training environment, difficult training to job transition. And this was written on March 27th of 2012. Ironically enough, I was hired in January of 2012. Under the pros, friendly group atmosphere, relaxed management style, that would be the lack of oversight that we discussed earlier. Good attendance, that's another pro that you mentioned earlier. Good career advancement, which it can be proven because I got promoted to a high-paying salary position within 2.5 years. But for the cons, we have poor training curriculum, poor training administration, haphazard scheduling, low focus on actual job applications and their use, too much theoretical rhetoric, discord between training department knowledge and actual floor knowledge, bad on-the-job support for new employees, weak management support, and administrative inflexibility on attendance issues and situations. Lori, what do you think of this?
I can see where that could be done that way because I've seen, I've been around long enough. But I also go back to the point that, when I look at this, okay, when you're training, it's hard to teach somebody in a training class that's just starting the practical stuff because the only way to learn that is actually to be in a call, believe it or not, and deal with a customer or to mimic that. You could teach a little bit and maybe there isn't enough focus on that. But I think there needs to be more focus after on it. Okay? After you've been on the phone for a little, for a short time. As far as the inflexibility with attendance things, when you're there to train, and it sounds to me like that particular person was there to train, that,
right.
That looked like they were only going through training, of course they're going to be inflexible. Because if you miss a day of training, you're going to miss too much. Now, once you get into the job, and you get past the training and transition period, as you and I both know, you have a lot more flexibility. I mean, I don't know too many jobs that give you the amount of UTO, PTO, and other things that we have available.
Right.
Plus you can put hours up on trades, if they go. If not, you can get UTO for them. Sometimes PTO. Sometimes there's even VGH available, which is, hey, go home. We've got too many people here today.
Sometimes.
Doesn't happen.
I think that's an exaggeration.
Not right now. I've had it happen. Now, the other thing is that, for doctor's appointments and things, how many places, if you just can't, you have no UTO, whatever. I don't know too many places that if you do your schedule right, and you plan. And to me, that's a job. That's just how a job is. They don't have to accommodate your schedule. You have to learn to accommodate your schedule to them. It's a job.
Correct.
That's what it is. So if you have an appointment, schedule it outside of the job, or if you don't have a choice, then schedule it to where it's only going to impact the least amount of time, and then get in as quickly as possible. That way you don't have a whole day point. Maybe you only got a quarter point or a half a point. I don't know too many places that do that point thing where, we can get the points that we have. And if you do it right and you can earn them back, that to me, come on, that's unheard of. At least that I know of in my experience. And at the other company I worked for, you didn't have something like that. So I just, if you think that's inflexible, go work at Wendy's or McDonald's. I'm sorry. My daughter, if she misses work, she's fired.
Yeah. And, the true irony of this is that when I worked at McDonald's from 2006 to 2008, the local, most of them are franchised, but there's corporate ones. But the franchise I was working for was actually adopting a point system before I left anyway. So I gotta say, yeah. I agree with you on that, Lori. The attendance is very flexible. This is actually the only job that I ever worked.
Attendance doesn't have to be flexible.
And
since when is a job flexible?
That's when you work for someone else, you do give up part of your own life in order to produce an income.
But unfortunately not all of us can be independent to where we can be our own boss. If you feel that you have the skills to do that, then by all means go knock yourself out and enjoy yourself. But until that time, if you're working for someone else, your time is their time.
That's true.
So,
and I don't know.
Quit whining about your life and get over it.
Well, and and with this person's concerns about attendance, I think that in a perfect world, everyone would like to have a job that is able to balance life and work well. And you speak
Yeah,
positive.
but
You
only,
speak well.
only those
Well, now
people
listen.
at
You
the
speak
stock can
positively.
show up at noon,
Now,
okay?
well, Lori, you speak positively on this, and you speak well because this is the first job that I had ever worked where there was a such thing as an automated shift trade process. When I was working at McDonald's and when I was working at 7-Eleven,
Yeah, you don't get that.
you have to speak to the person, you have to go through management, you can't trade away single
Yep.
hours, stagger. So you're right,
Yep.
and you certainly can't get extra income by picking up hours. I mean, the company that we
Nope.
are talking about actually would let you pick up 12 and a half hours of overtime in scheduled trades. Very few companies.
I did, or in mandatory, or in overtime.
And very few companies.
They needed very few people do that.
Very few companies, and especially those independent franchises like I was referring to with McDonald's, they'll freak out if you have 1 or 2 hours of overtime.
Now you work over 29 hours and they have to supply you insurance. So a lot of, my daughter works at, I'm not going to mention fast food, which one it is, but my daughter works at a fast food restaurant. And the thing of it is there is a lot of issues where most of the weeks all she can do to get 29 hours. So, and the reason is because if they work over 29 hours on a regular basis, they have to supply insurance. That's federal law. So they don't want to have to do that. So that's how they're getting around it. I like the fact too, I mean, I personally, I understand some people would say the insurance is not very good, but no, it works for us. The job I say pay, that's how I have my insurance.
So, Lori, I like the insurance as well. And, the insurance, I'm certainly...
You missed that, right?
Well, I got COBRA. If I feel I need it bad enough, then I will cough up the $500. Well, I'll work something out. So, when it comes to attendance and when it comes to the benefits, that's a separate phone conversation. But when it comes to the benefits, there's no dispute that the company that we both worked for together at the same time does give good benefits and is pretty flexible when it comes to attendance. But with the remaining 18 minutes,
I don't know too many companies that do. Though, what we would call lower level entry positions that have the benefits that they have, even at those positions.
Now, I said a key word earlier that I'm going to bring up again as a recurring topic, the word attrition. Despite the fact that work at home is hailed as...
they have a high turnover.
Despite the fact that work at home is hailed as a way to save money, to work in your pajamas, to have more time to spend with your family.
Oh, don't you know there's some people who don't work in their pajamas? That's actually giving them too much credit.
Despite all of that, you should have seen me before this conversation when I was posting on Facebook with you on our one-on-one call. But anyway,
so anybody listening, I have a personal rule that I at least put on a shirt.
Is this something I'm going to have to censor out?
No, I just said I at least put on a shirt. I do not work naked. I'm sorry. That makes me feel unprofessional.
Well, to anybody because Lori forced me to comment on it, to anybody who's listening to this, I never worked naked when I worked for that company. I promise. I might have been down to my underwear, but I never worked naked.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that it's still a job, and they might not be able to see me, but I feel more professional, even if all I have on is a shirt.
Lori,
you know what I mean?
Despite the perceived benefits of greater, I was just about to say a word I didn't
You're losing it.
Okay, I'm going to have to bleep that. No, I'm not going to bleep that one. Despite the increase in attendance flexibility, gas savings, and ability to spend more time with family, there's still large amounts of attrition. And before I left...
Spend time with family? What's that?
Well,
That's not where we work.
So
because that actually, to me, it's a regular job. It's no different. To me, that's one thing. Okay, that is to me, that is a misbelief. That is a misbelief. Let's put it that way.
Oh.
Because of the fact that it is still a job. It's no different than McDonald's and you walking out that door and getting in your car and driving to your job. The only difference is you're in your house. My children have had to learn that when I'm in the work, they're not allowed to make a lot of noise. I've been working since my son from home, since my son was like 7 or 8 years old. So he's grown up learning that when I'm at work, mommy's doing this. Now I finally got a house where I have an office, and I sometimes shut my door, but I don't always. It's still the point though. My children, because of the headset, I don't hear what's going on, and I flat out tell my son, don't bother me during work. This is not your time. My time right now, it belongs to my employer, because that is, I'm not there, that's not your time. I'm not mommy right now. Unless it's an emergency, life or death, and you've got to have me right now because you're going to bleed to death or something, or the house is on fire, or, let's get this, there's a tornado actually in the neighborhood. I want to know about that one. But it's other than that, don't bother me until either I take a break or I have lunch or I get off. Because my time belongs to that company. They're paying me for my time. And you can't, so saying your family, there are home agents, and I know because I've heard their kids in the background, they don't understand that. This isn't about you being with your kids, other than the fact that you're there. You're physically there, but you're not mentally there.
So, Lori, you pointed out something very telling when it comes to those who have obligations outside of work, and I agree with you 100% on that, because the document that we all signed, or I'm guessing you did, I know I did, said that you have to make sure that any needs like child care or care of your family or pets have to be taken care of and arrangements made before you start work. So there's there's obstacles like the attendance situation, like what we read from the interview. There are obstacles like the attendance and the family obligations, but that could be with any job, I suppose. There might be additional challenges.
That's the way I look at it.
Well, there could be additional challenges while you're at home because you're right next to everyone else in the household. But why would you say that despite the additional perceived benefits of working from home and, these obstacles notwithstanding, why do you think that there's such a high attrition for work-at-home agents for what's supposedly supposed to be a dream job?
Because I think the majority of people go into it with rose-colored glasses and they don't understand what it really is. It's not going there and having a party. It's not going there and being able to do whatever you want just because your boss isn't there. That's not what it is. It is still a job. You have the same responsibilities as if you got off your rear end and drove your car to McDonald's, or if you drove to Walmart, or you drove into the corporate offices of Microsoft. It doesn't matter where you are. It is still a job. And that's what you need to take into it, is that this is your livelihood. This is how you are paying your bills and getting whatever you need for your family. You have to take it seriously. It's not something that you can lightly go, just flip off. The other thing I think that also leads to it is, honestly, at least in our field, is not everybody is cut out to handle customer service. Not everybody can do it.
Well,
not everybody yelled at. Not everybody can be called every name under the book but white, free, female. And I'm sorry, bitch, cunt, and the other words don't count.
These two.
Yes, I've been called that on a call.
These are two things that the two reasons that you're providing are common to, most jobs in general. For the work-at-home environment, however, except for the family being possibly a distraction in your work.
It's general jobs, yes. Because my daughter has issues, like I said, in fast food. She just recently this week was robbed at gunpoint. Okay? Her store was robbed at gunpoint. So, we don't have to deal with that. So, thank goodness. Well, or at least let's hope we don't. If we do, it's because of our own choices.
Well, that's something that's beyond her control. But what about things within control, like training and the understanding of cause and effect from management and their ability to relate to their employees?
Most of the people going into this area, this field, are young. They do not have much job experience. And let's face it, because of that, they don't put the seriousness behind it. Most of the people who are retained and who stick around are the ones who are usually older in most cases. I'm not going to say all because I know of a few. I'm going to clarify for all of those management positions who are on our walls, okay? And I happen to know of a couple of them, that they are still like your age and maybe like 1 or 2 years older, like a senior OM is one I can think of. I'm going to say, most, not all, okay? Most of the people, they just don't have the mindset that's necessary to go in and be serious. Because it's no different than why do they fail college? Why did they fail college? They just didn't put the same seriousness into it. It's no different. It's the same thing. They think of it as a party. Ooh, I can go in and I can have my own schedule and I can do this and this and this. But that's not what it is. And then they get those first customers yelling at them and they crack. Or you also get those people, let's not forget, we all had them in our class, who asked every question all the time. They manipulated the trainer's time to the point, and they asked the same questions over and over and over again. And they reached transition and they got on those calls and they still ask the same questions over and over and over again. And they don't even last a week in transition. That to me is just not paying attention.
So
there is the point where you have to, you get out of it what you put in.
So where do we get to the point where the company is responsible for, or the industry even is responsible for some of the attrition?
The industry they become responsible for attrition in the sense when it comes to training, when it comes to doing more to figure out why you're having so much turnover. Because if you have a lot of turnover, if you have a class of 30 and 6 months later there's only 2 left, there's a problem. You know what I mean? So why are you getting that turnover? You're putting that money into that, those kind of things. So company has to look at that. That's a company thing. But at the same time, maybe it's also the quality of people that they're hiring. Where is it failing? Is it at the hire process and then the hiring thing, or is it the training? Is it the people themselves? Because personally, it's all about accountability. We all are accountable for ourselves. A company can do what they can do and they can put it out there. And I'm going to tell you that as far as training and what's out there, I realize that it's not the best. I'm not going to say it's the best. But by far from what I had at my previous employer, it is night and day, 100% better than what I had in the past. So that tells you, when I'm saying that,
Lori,
there is a huge difference.
It's good to make comparisons in order to be real and understand that you're not setting extremely high or low expectations for a company. So I really think that it's good that you're comparing to.
I went from hardly any training to at least getting training.
Well, let's talk about that.
They had training classes with a trainer. We had a trainer in a training class 5 days a week. Do you want to know how I did it in before?
Well,
they would give us the slideshows, and it was on us on our schedule. And then we would take a test, and that was it. That was the training.
Does the fact that you had such a worse experience elsewhere necessarily validate your current experience or make what's going on there okay? It might make a better comparison, but does it validate it? Does it validate or justify?
That's not necessarily validating. As if you have any of us, we all have worked for what we would consider, in our experience, a bad employer. Does that make it any less true when we can recognize someone that's good? Whether it be perfect is a different story, okay? Because I don't think anybody's perfect. Because everybody, the minute we're perfect, we might as well just lay down and die. There's no reason to live anymore. There's always reason to learn, and there's always reason to grow. But all of us have had bad employers. That doesn't necessarily, or bad neighbors or bad whatever. But it means that we recognize something that is good. So my experience with who I have is that this person was bad, or at least, for them was this training experience. So that when I saw something better, then I recognize it as better. Does that mean that it's perfect or that it doesn't have room for improvement? No. Okay? Because there's always room for improvement. However, if you compare, that's just my experience. Now, someone else might not have any different. the same way that you can compare one employer to another.
Well,
I'm sure you've had bad ones too.
I used to work in education as a substitute teacher. I'm not claiming to have the degree. Well, I'm not claiming to have the degree or the technical knowledge of how to actually run a classroom for months on end. But what I can say
I could see you handling 3-year-olds.
Just to substantiate what I was trying to say, when someone we could even, further simplify training just to go down to say that someone knows how to do something. If you have a student who has a subject that they're not good at, like mathematics, for example, because they weren't taught how to, do fractions or work decimals or, perform algebra effectively, and no one teaches them how to do it and they don't have any confidence in their ability, what's eventually going to happen is that they start hating it and then they start having issues attending school. So it just leads to a plethora of other problems. So while I certainly do agree Lori, while I certainly do agree,
sorry.
it's okay. Just another moment. While I certainly do agree that a lot of it is the employee's willingness to take the job seriously and provide meet the necessary prerequisites of having a quiet environment that's fit for the job, I would want you to seriously scrutinize how much of that is also within the company's control and how much of that is caused by the company's ability to realize cause and effect and what part education.
But see, you have to remember that in this situation, they're dealing with an at-home situation. Where the company can really control it is if they're in a call center. So if you have an actual center job, I'm sure it's a little different. Because then you have an actual classroom, you're sitting somewhere face to face. But we're dealing with somebody that's in a, at-home situation. So, everybody's at.
Okay. Sorry about that. There was a sudden glitch in the line. Do you remember what you were saying before the disconnection? I'm sorry.
No, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about training, and that's right. We were talking about what part of attrition would be company related or industry related, and what part is related to the employees. We gave some good examples of when employees would be responsible, as they would be of other businesses. They have to take the job seriously, they have to meet the requirements, and they have to understand that they have to give up a part of their own life in order to earn an income. So where do you think that the employee's responsibility ends and the company's begins, as we alluded to with training?
Okay. Well, I think it's, okay. Training, I think, is a big part, but maybe it's also not just training. Maybe it's support would be more of the key word that you're looking for. Because in all reality, once you get past transition, the support, you still have your manager, okay? But the level of support that you have is no different than any other agent. And for some people, I'm not saying that they need a babysitter,
right?
Although it kind of feels that way. But maybe there should be, think of it along the lines of how when you go to certain businesses and they have like a period for a new customer. Okay, and that's more than just the weeks of training and transition. I'm talking about maybe for like a couple of months, a period of a new agent, like a new agent queue or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? I'm thinking on my feet, all right? Okay, something along the lines like a new agent queue where you could have dedicated assist queue who handle them. And then, where they could contact, because only they could contact that particular group of assist queue, for instance. And because that would lower the amount of calls and contacts so that hopefully they would get a faster response. You see what I mean? In other words, have something a little more dedicated, because TLs are busy. The bosses are busy. They got a lot of stuff they've got to do of their own. They've got to get done. work that they have to get done to meet their requirements that they need for their job. I understand that. But the problem is a lot of times I'll see agents who appear to be newer because they're asking a lot of the same questions. And they're asking them in the chat and they would like an answer, but the problem is that as an agent, like even though I might know the answer, I can't because I'm involved in my own call.
And
I try to help
oversight,
where I can.
Well, independence requires you to be resourceful and be able to work alone a lot of the time, doesn't it?
I understand that, but as a new agent that's still learning the line, it's harder to be as resourceful unless you are supported there. And I think that might be where we're losing them. Because they don't feel supported. Nobody answers my questions. I'm so confused. I'm lost. I don't understand this. Those are the things I hear people say. When I was on when I was a supervisor, as you can attest,
and you were a darn good one, and still would be.
I had a lot of people who when I went back to being an agent for personal reasons. When I went back, I had a lot of people ask me why, and you could tell it was an honest thing of, oh my God, why aren't you up there anymore? It wasn't just a normal thing. It was like, oh my God, why did you go? But it was because I really feel that for me, the agent, and I've explained this whenever I do this, that an agent, whether it be an actual customer I'm dealing with the client or the agent, whoever I'm talking to, that is my customer. And I treated you no different than I would as if you were calling in under the client and you were a customer. It's just your needs were a little different.
Well,
and it didn't matter.
If we could just replicate the experience that I had with you, Lori, and just clone that by times 20, and everyone listening to this conversation, just listen to how Lori has a cheerful personality. She's got energy. She talks in an upbeat manner. I don't think that reflects the majority of our leader. Well, I can't use that anymore.
Well,
but if we just had more enthusiasm and energy, like what you've brought to this phone call, then I think that the company
and people don't understand.
Would be a better place.
People don't understand this about me, okay? And you know this because you know more about my personal life, okay? When I'm at work and when I'm on the phone, you would never guess the crap I've got going on here at my house. No different than I had someone having a heart attack in my ear, okay? How many people can have their partner, the person that they love, beyond life and death, going into cardiac arrest in their ear and saying, I can't breathe, my chest hurts, I can't breathe, and have that in your ear all while you're talking to a customer at the same time, and not lose it, not show that that's happening? Nobody knew. And I actually am friends with that supervisor that I was talking to. That person could tell you. They would remember that day. And they didn't know either. Nobody knew. Because when I get into work and I pick up that phone, no matter how stressed I am, no matter that I just was bawling my eyes out and crying because of whatever, the minute I pick up that phone and I say, thank you for calling blank blank, my name is Lori, how are you doing today? The minute I do that, I'm not here. I'm there. You see, it's not.
Well, you're skilled at
multiple personalities, but
no. I don't think it's multiple personalities at all. You're willing to detach your personal life while you're on the clock. If you were at a brick and mortar center, if you were actually driving to work, then you would not have the benefit of being at home to personally be available for someone who has an emergency.
Yeah, because that's the thing is when you are at home, it's in your face. Your emergencies, your problems, the fact that you're worried if your electricity is going to get shut off, the fact that you've got a mortgage payment due and, oh my God, how are you going to pay it? The fact that your grass needs cut and the HOA's yelling at you because if you don't do it, you're going to pay a fine. All of these things, the kids are yelling at each other, the dog's barking, whatever. All kinds of stuff. I know of a certain previous manager of mine. She was involved in, she's down in Georgia, and she was involved. Remember when the hurricanes, and I think it was a hurricane that actually hit down there. She actually had a tree knock out her office. It was her room, and she was still working. Barely, but she was still working. And the thing is that for me, it becomes kind of an escape from that stuff. When I ended the last time before I went back, I was and I've told you this, I was in the most god-awful pain that anybody can imagine. Actually, you probably couldn't imagine it. It was in my head. And nobody knew. Nobody. At work. Nobody knew. And it took like 6 months for that to finally go away. And nobody knew. But it was from a surgery that I had. And it was the most awful thing I've ever done. And I made a point to tell that doctor the next time he gave me some good drugs. But he didn't give me any drugs. So I was doing that on my own. And it was awful, okay? And I went through that and still took calls. You didn't know. I talked to you during that time. You had no clue. Nobody did. Because at work, I shut it off. I just didn't move my head.
Well, I mean, that's one of the advantages of being a stoic professional like you are. I mean, you were a professional through and through, and I never once had the impression that you were suffering or that you were having personal issues. You were always the cheerful, helpful professional that you continue to be today from the very beginning.
Yeah, there actually is tricks with me that you can know, but you have to know what they are to know when I'm not having a good day. But my voice always, at least with customers, has the same, but it's how, there is ways, but you guys never knew. But to me, I wanted to encourage you because I know what it's like to be on the phones, to deal with customers, to have them yelling at you, to have them telling you, hey, you're gonna do this or I'm gonna blah, blah, blah. I know what that's like. Been there, done that, and if I can make you smile, then when you go back, you're going to have that smile in your voice. And that's so important. Because it's all about a smile.
Exactly.
Okay, and now I'm starting to sound like
the
dentist.
That's with that's something that if you consent to a part 2, I would love to do this with you again, then that's something that we'll go over more in depth. Because I think emotions do play a large part behind it. But for anybody who is considering a work-at-home job or on the internet looking for reviews, and depending on how popular this video becomes on YouTube, not that I would profess to be very well listened to by the internet in general, but assuming that somebody, whether it's one of our coworkers or someone who's trying to decide between a good old-fashioned morning commute job that requires getting up in the morning and going out, or just working from the comfort of their own home, do you have anything that you would personally say to anybody who's considering a job like this?
What I would consider is to look at your options. Okay? The working at home is not for everybody. Okay? It honestly isn't. But to look at all your options and look at your personality and see if it is something that you can do. And go into it with the complete understanding that it is a job. That company owes you nothing. They don't owe you. I'm thankful I have a job every day that I log in. I'm thankful that I have that job, and I do whatever I can to protect it. Because believe it or not, there's 200 people out there waiting to get my job. You know what I mean? It's a dog eat dog out there. So if you're managed to get a job, whether it be work at home or not, be thankful you have a job. And whether it be at home, take care of it. Treat it like the gift that it is. It's not something to throw away. I don't say that against you because I understand your reasoning. Okay? I'm not saying that. We are talking especially about attrition and people who just go into it blindly and they're gone within a short period of time. Those are the ones that we're dealing with. I think that you've got to understand if you want a job, if you want to live, you want to eat, you want to have food over your house and a roof over your head, you want to get your insurance, you want to do whatever you want to have, then you've got to just buck up and grow. As Judge Judy would say, you've got to grow some big girl and boy panties, and you've got to, just realize that this is life. This is adulthood. And a lot of us have jobs, that we don't like. Now, me personally, I love my job. I love it. I'm good at customer service, and I love it. But not everybody does. But it doesn't matter. There's not everybody who likes being in fast food. There's not everybody who likes to, picking up strawberries. That's the way it is. It's a job. It's an end to, it's a means to an end. You do it because you have no choice. And that's what you have to do. Once you realize that and you're hungry enough, then you do it. And I always like to say those who leave under those circumstances, they're not hungry enough. They haven't gone hungry yet. They haven't had to work, work yet enough. You know what I mean? They're not starving. But jobs are scarce, and they're going to get, I think in the economy, our fear is it's going to get worse. And I treat my job, I respect it, I love it. I'm so thankful to my employer for allowing me to work, and all of the bosses and everybody. I'm thankful for them. I've learned from them. I pick on them, I tease them, but I respect every one of them. Well, almost every one of them. I have to clarify that statement. I'm not going to go into particulars, but okay. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
I have the utmost gratitude that I have this job, because without being the work at home, honestly, in my position that I'm in, without work at home, I wouldn't be working. So I'm thankful that I have it, and that's how I'll leave it. And that's what you've got to do. That's the attitude you have to have. But it's not for everybody. It isn't. My partner can't do it. He tried. He lasted 6 months. So I totally get it. Totally. And I flat out told him that bed's too close.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, so say the words of, so says Lori, respected coworker, mother, woman that brings home the income, very hard worker. Hopefully we'll have another dialogue like this soon. Thank you very much for listening in. I'm going to disconnect this meeting, and I'm going to meet up with Lori one-on-one privately, and we will coordinate. Hopefully, if you like this discussion, make sure that you voice your opinions in the comments section.
Let us know.
Yeah, make sure you let us know if you got any insight from this. This is very likely
or if you have any other topics you'd like us to debate.
Very likely going to be one part to a multi-part discussion, but I want to take the time to thank Lori for coming. I really enjoyed this discussion with you, Lori. And
I really had a hard commute. It was really hard. Traffic going down the I-90 was awful.
And I really, really hope that we will have more of these in the future. All right, everyone. It's 5:46 a.m. on the East Coast on August 2nd. Everyone have a good morning. Good morning or good night. Bye now.
Bye.